I'm wanting nice bread for Saturday lunchtime, and it's Wednesday night now, so I'm going to take my starters out of the fridge. If we can find them, they're in here somewhere. This is Bill and Ben, flower pot men. Here they are, okay? They're just sitting there, haven't been doing much for a couple of days. So we're just going to leave them to come to room temperature tonight, and then tomorrow morning I'm going to feed them, and then we'll carry on from there. Hi again, it's Thursday morning, and I'm going to feed my starters, and I'm actually going to put them into clean jam jars, because after a while they get really gucky and it's really hard to see where they're going up and down. So I'm just going to put them into clean jam jars, and I can soak and wash those and use them next time. I don't know if you can see, but they're just kind of sitting there, down at the level of about the band. Got a few bubbles, both of them. Got a nice smell, kind of. Anyway, loads of different websites say different things, but every time I feed them, I basically put 50 grams of plain flour in and 50 grams mils water each time, and that seems to work fine. So I'm going to do that now. Right. Okay. Equal amounts. I don't think it matters particularly. Then we're going to give it a really good stir in. No lumps, so it looks kind of like that. It's a little bit lumpy. That's the sort of thickness. Some people talk about liquid starters, and I don't know. I don't really understand. Anyway, this is working for me. So normally, if I wasn't changing jam jar, I'd just leave it in there now. But because I'm going to put it in a nice clean one, so I can see what's going down. That's it. So we don't need to. If it had been I was using the old one, I would have scraped down the sides a bit so I could see clearly. I've got my band actually sitting exactly the right spot, so that's good. And I'm going to put my little cloth on. The cloth works for me. Some people say to cover them, other people say to leave them open, but I think probably covering them with a material is probably the best way to go. And that's ready to rise. So I'm going to put it in a sunny spot. I use the corner of the living room because it gets lots of sun. You'll be able to stick yours next to your agar. I forgot to say, I just use tap water. It says on lots of the website to use distilled water, but I think ours is filtered anyway. But if you're not sure, perhaps use filtered, or let the tap water sit a bit before you use it. And I just use it at kind of room temperature, not too cold, not too hot. And the other thing was, I would expect it to take now about 4 hours, maybe 3, 4, 5 hours, something, for it to rise. It needs to rise now till double its height, and that's when we're going to then use it to mix the dough. So that should be this afternoon sometime. Okay, and we'll do the next stage then. Bye. Hi again, it's 1:15, and look at the starters now. Can you see the bands where they were this morning at about 10, and now they've come right up, and this one's come right up as well to there. So we're going to get cracking. I should have done this a little while ago, but they've really caught me by surprise. And we're going to just mix the flour and water first, and then leave it to sit for a bit before we add the starter and the salt. Some people do this, some people don't, but I've been doing it and it seems to be working fine. And I think there's a posh word for it called autolysing, something like that. So that's 1,000 grams or a kilo of strong white bread flour going in there, and then that's 770 mils of water going in there, and I am just literally going to mix them together, and then they're going to sit for a little bit longer together, perhaps for an hour. I don't want these to start dropping though, so I'm going to keep a really careful eye on them, because it's important to add the starter before it starts to fall. So I'm just going to stir that in, because the moment the flour and the water start mixing, then the magic starts happening. Not fermenting, just things start breaking down. So I found it really good to use a spatula and make sure all the flour is picked up. And literally we're just going to leave it to sit for about an hour. doesn't matter if it looks really rough, just shaggy, just like that. But just make sure that all the flour is incorporated. Okay, so we're just going to leave that for an hour and then we're going to come back to it and add the starter and the salt. Okay. Right, now it's time to get these starters into our flour and water mix. Okay, they've both bubbled up beautifully. If I did the float test, they would both float. I'm not going to though because I want to get them in here and get going. Okay, I need 150 grams of starter. By the way, I didn't say before that this mixture will make 2 loaves. So I'm going to use mixture from both of the pots. Right, there's our starter, about 150 grams of starter. And then we're going to put 20 grams of salt in. That is fine. So that's about 10 grams per loaf. Lovely. Okay, and then we're just going to mix all that together. Mix the starter in with the salt. Just looks really rough, but it's absolutely fine. And what we're going to do for over the next 2 hours, we're going to do something called the stretch and fold. We're going to do it in half an hour and then at half-hour intervals. And that's the kind of nearest bit to kneading that you have with this bread. And then it's just going to sit until tomorrow. So we're just going to leave it like that. That looks pretty well mixed in. Doesn't matter if it's a bit rough, because it will get nicely mixed with the stretch and folds as well. Okay, so that's what it looks like now. We're going to leave it with a little bit of cling film to cover so it doesn't dry out. And then we're going to come back to it in 30 minutes. Okay, half an hour's gone by and it's time to do the first set of stretch and folds. I've got wet hands, just rinse them under water. Looks like that at the moment. And literally, all I'm going to do is put my hand in and pull up the dough and flop it over. Turn a bit, hand in, pull up, flop it over. Hand in, pull up, flop it in. Then we're going to just cover back on and leave it for another 30 minutes. Okay, stretch and fold number 2. Okay, in we go. When we do the next one, I'm going to do a slightly different technique that I saw somewhere else that's quite good maybe to try as well. But that's that one for the moment. Okay, turn 3, a bit more than an hour ago, but we didn't put the timer on. But anyway, let's go for it. Whoa. Looking much smoother, feeling much smoother. The other technique that I see in the books is when you lift the dough up in the middle and you sort of kind of fold it in on itself like that. A bit like, I don't know like what really, because that gives a nice smooth top. But anyway, looking good. One more fold and then we can leave it be for a bit. Okay, ready to do the 4th stretch and fold. So, and when I've done this, I'm actually going to put it into my square container for its bulk filament, because then I can see really much easier how far it's gone up, because it's really difficult to see in a round bowl how much it's risen. So that looks fine. So I've got this nice big, it's a bit big actually, but it's fine. So I'm going to put my dough into there. It comes out really nicely. There we go, just got a very empty bowl there. And then literally I'm just going to leave it now. And I'm actually going to leave it overnight till tomorrow before we shape it. And I mean, I could put it in the fridge, but it seems to be fine at room temperature here. It doesn't seem to go up too much, but it does seem to take that long to rise. And I'm going to mark, in a bit when it's settled, I'm going to mark I'm going to put a bit of sellotape on to mark the level. Okay, it's now Friday morning. Time to look at our dough, and look, there's the sellotape level down there where it was sitting yesterday when it had settled, and now it's more than doubled in size, and it's looking really bubbly and lovely, and it's still a little bit domed on the top, which is a good sign. So it's time to do the initial shape. So put a little bit of flour on the workbench, not too much. My hand's a little bit floury, and then we've got to get this baby out of here and onto the workbench. So there's our dough, and then we just need to cut it in half. Before I was using a big blade, a light knife like that, but now I've got a bench scraper, so that's cool. I just do it by eye, sort of just pull it in half, and it is a sticky wet dough, but I've learned not to panic. There we go. Okay, a bit more. So we've got 2 lots. Now we just need to do a rough shaping because we're going to leave it for half an hour for the bench rest, and then we'll do a better shaping before we put it in a basket to sit in the fridge. Okay, so literally just need to kind of roughly shape it out, flop it around like that. That's fine. And then any way you like really, but I followed one of the guys who kind of twisted it like that, and then folded it in, and then on the other side folded it up and round, plopped it over, and then I'm just kind of starting to get it into a, if you turn it and tuck it under at the same time, it just goes into a sort of nice round shape like that. And it doesn't matter too much the first time because it's just going to sit on the bench. So that's one, and then I'll do the same with the other, and then I'm just going to cover them with a tea towel and leave them for half an hour. Right, half an hour, we're back. They've had their bench rest. While they've been doing that, I've got the little baskets ready that I'm going to, they're properly called bannetons and you can buy them, but these seem to work fine. I started off using a bowl like that, and that worked fine too, but these are a bit smaller to go in the fridge, and it doesn't seem to have any difference to what comes out at the end, so we're using those. They're just my little cheap bread baskets with a really well floured tea towel inside, so that's how I do it. Right, okay, then we have to reshape them again and get them into the baskets. So we're just going to put a bit more flour down there, so that, and we do similar to we did before, just spread it out like that, and then we're going to fold it up. Okay, and now we're going to start just tightening it up a bit. Just spinning it round seems to be, spinning it round and tucking it under. I don't know, I'm no expert, I've only done half a dozen, so, and people have loads of different ways of doing it. Basically you're trying to increase the tension on the top surface and tuck in everything else. To make it really nice and domed. That looks about right. I think that will be fine. And then you have to try and get it into the banneton with the nice surface facing down, because that's going to keep it in the shape that you want the finished loaf in. Okay? So it's a bit of a really sliding that underneath and popping it into the basket, you can see. And I use the basket to adjust it slightly so it's nice and central. And then literally, just make sure there's plenty of, a little bit of flour on the top surface as well. Like that. And then that's going to go into the fridge until tomorrow, until I'm ready to bake it. Okay. Good morning. It's now Saturday morning and it's baking day. So I've just taken this out of the fridge and it doesn't look, it has actually, I think it's plopped up a little bit, it hasn't risen very much, maybe a little bit. Now to get it into the Dutch oven or the cruiser, whatever you want to call it, which is boiling hot because it's been preheating in the oven. Right, then you need to slash it so that it doesn't burst in the baking process. And proper bakers have a proper, it's really essentially a razor blade on a stick, but a proper tool. But anyway, I have some nice razor blades I've invested in, and you can do what you like really, but I'm going to do a big slash down there. And then we'll do some, I did some little leaves before. Okay, now we're going to just simply pop it in the Dutch oven, like that. Try not to get burnt in the process. Put the lid on and then transfer it to your hottest bit of the oven. I'm putting it on a couple of baking trays so that the crust doesn't get too hard. And then I'm going to put the timer on for, I think, about 25 minutes, maybe 23. Back in a minute. Okay, buzz has just gone, so we're going to have a first look at it. What we're going to do is simply take the lid off for another 10 minutes and we hope it's risen. Otherwise I'm going to feel like a right plonker. Oh, it's hot. Look at that, looking good. Just needs to get brown now. Okay, right, beef has just gone. Time to take it out, I think. Oh, yes. Looking good. Not bad at all. Not maybe the best I've done, but not the worst either. Bring it out. I've tested the temperature inside just to check, and that's looking good to me. Ooh, boiling hot. Nice. Check the bottom. Nice. Awesome. Looking forward to that with soup for lunch. Okay, just thought you might like to see what it looks like inside. We're just about to have it with some soup for lunch. Oh yeah, it doesn't look too bad.
It's lovely. Is it ciabatta?
No, it's sourdough.
All right. It's very nice.
A few air holes. That's okay. Mandy says I need to sign off. So I really hope you've enjoyed this video and found it useful. Send me some